Good day, everyone. I'm Rob Hewitt, and I'm the Director of Global Business Development for Spatial DNA. Here at Spatial DNA, we design and build no-code integrations to connect solutions to your key business applications. Some quick background on our company. We've been around for 12 years. We started as a system design company in the aviation sector. We built our practice around mission-critical systems. This meant the design must not fail. We took this experience to the local government space, which is where most of our work is now. We continue to expand our work in aviation and other industries like retail, manufacturing, and real property. We now focus primarily on application integration. Our product is a no-code platform that understands spatial information. This is very important if you're in an industry that needs to leverage geographical data, or in an industry that manages or builds facility or infrastructure assets. We've handled some complex integration challenges. We understand that data is never perfect, and we can always design around any data deficiencies. Your host for today's webinar will be our founder and CEO, Todd Lewis. Todd is on a mission to connect systems, transform work, and engage the creativity of his customers so that they can grow their communities by digitally transforming their businesses. Todd has been active in GIS technology space for 25 years and is a recognized expert in application and data integration. Todd holds a BSc in Geomatics Engineering from the University of Calgary, and he is an active member of the Entrepreneur Organization, a group dedicated to supporting entrepreneurs and growing their entrepreneurial spirit globally. Todd, over to you.
Thanks, Rob. So today we're going to be talking about application integration. There is a misconception in our market that we'd like to resolve. Questions like, isn't this a solved problem? Isn't this the vendor's responsibility or the system implementer's responsibility? And doesn't an API handle this? So we're going to be talking about how to integrate your systems, some of the challenges you're going to be facing with implementing new software, some of the benefits you can expect when integrating your systems. We'll have a deep look at the integration process and also look at how we select an implementation pattern that fits your particular circumstances. And then we'll leave you with a summary and some takeaways before opening the floor for questions. The question we're asked most often by our customers and our partners is, how do we connect system A with system B? Application integration is the automation of often manual processes that pass data between applications, departments, and organizations. The hard part of this process is defining the human interactions with the information that is exchanged. To most organizations, connecting two systems is perceived as a solved problem that is simple to implement with little monetary value associated. However, the success of many projects is dependent upon an integrated system of systems. Integrations often reduce both financial and organizational risk that is typically not captured in the business case for systems acquisitions. So when we look at the current landscape and some of the challenges that our customers are facing, we can kind of take two perspectives, one from the perspective of a customer and the other from a software implementer that's working on behalf of the customer to implement a new system. So customers are busy running their day-to-day operations. They don't really have time to worry about connecting systems, but this is often a critical business need. They also strive often for a one platform system. So that might be, hey, we try to build everything on SAP or Oracle or Microsoft or Salesforce, but that's not always optimal for every use case in the organization. So this often leads to fragmented systems, often with needs to integrate into some of your core enterprise level applications. When we're dealing with government, they're often bound by procurement rules, which automatically lead to a fragmented set of systems across their organization. Some of the other factors that are driving the integration conversation are things like retention of key technical staff. Attracting and keeping talent these days is really difficult. And the internal capabilities for managing integration is often challenging. Integration tends to be a multidisciplinary practice, and finding people with the skills and capabilities across solution architecture, understanding how systems are built and developed, APIs, there's a series of things that make finding people that are skilled in integration difficult. And then there's the drive to cloud. So since COVID, there's been a real incentive to move a lot of the business applications into their cloud. So this means deploying new applications and causing many point solutions to solve specific problems. So we're seeing more and more, again, that system fragmentation as cloud-based services come online and are satisfying very niche problems or requirements. On the implementer side, retention is also a challenge for them. And then there's the increased complexity of projects. So a lot of the systems that implementers are now implementing are more about configuration than developing custom code to fit in with a customer requirement. So configuration of systems means that we're talking about more senior resources that understand the business environment as well as the technical application of that tool to the environment. There's a growing backlog of project work. So each implementer now is having to handle capacity planning, and many of them have backlogs of work of 6 to 12 months, which means adding in some of these requirements for integrating with many systems where these are specialized requirements becomes difficult for them to fulfill. And then there's the need for application-specific experts. So connecting to a new or an unfamiliar system means spinning up a new resource or adding knowledge to an existing resource's capabilities for how they need to interface with a specific system, or understanding sort of the business process that's being enabled with that integration.
You know, Todd, what customers are really looking for is the same experience they have as consumers. They want simple user interfaces, not too many buttons and not too many choices. They want it to be intuitive.
Yeah, so what we're seeing is that businesses are now updating their applications to automate a lot of their business processes and really simplify that user experience. So they're trying to meet that expectation. They're also connecting their systems into cross-departmental workflows to automate a good chunk of their work. And then they're innovating and making space for people to be creative by doing all of this automation work and offloading a lot of the mundane data movement requirements.
So Todd, what happens to our data when a new application is installed?
So first, keep in mind your software is not plug and play with other systems. Another big misconception. So like building a bridge, application integration requires communication, coordination, and effort, read work, between organizations to design the data mappings, incorporate business rules, and decode your specific jargon to enable a system-to-system interface.
So then, Todd, what you're saying is that the application integration is a technical solution to a non-technical problem.
Yeah, like most things, in the end, it's a people problem.
That's insightful. So we're going to reset the room now and take a quick poll. We'd like to ask what types of systems you're hoping to integrate. For example, ERP, CRM, work and asset management, permitting and licensing, or other types of systems. And feel free to specify if it's another type. Drop your answer in the chat and we'll send the results in our follow-up newsletter along with our webinar recording. It says read some of the answers. So do you want me to just pick up on what's coming in on the chat?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. Looks like we've got some CRM. Looks like we've got some, oh, interesting. There's an AVL that's not on the list here. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Moving on. Todd, what are the benefits of integrating our systems?
The goal really is to join multiple systems into a single comprehensive solution that works as one solution. So as your organization scales, you're going to be adding, removing, replacing applications based on your current needs. And your integrations need to evolve. So some of the benefits that we can look at is reducing mundane work. So this is the copy, paste, import, export, or re-entry of data from one application to the next. Better data integrity. So data is accurate and current across all systems. And then automating some of that data entry reduces human input errors as well. Your data becomes easier to access because we're eliminating data silos and increasing the transparency of your systems and data across your organization. And then finally, and maybe most importantly, that you're building out a more flexible infrastructure. So as your business needs change, it's crucial that you can replace your applications in a more modular fashion.
So it sounds like we'll be giving time back to a lot of people, Todd, and better data. But won't it be a big mountain to climb? What's involved in this?
So when we break this down, we kind of look at it as 6 steps, and we'll go through these in the following slides. So the first is to review your business processes. The next thing we look at is building or outlining your content catalog for each system in terms of the objects that you want to integrate. We'll diagram those into data flows, capture business rules that are important for enabling some of those automations, leverage your reference data, so look at third-party information to validate or confirm or inform some of the information that you're passing back and forth. And then finally, deploying your integration technology. So on the reviewing business process, what we're looking at is a high-level view of processes used to execute a business function. So what data is being managed? Business processes are often looking at reporting status or gaining approval as you go step to step. And those status changes and approval steps often mean the movement of information across systems. So when we're looking at those high-level business process, we're in particular looking at information requirements that go with those status change or approval steps. And when you look at the overall process, you might start to see opportunities to automate pieces of the overall program. The next step is outlining your content catalog. So this is looking at high-level sort of major business objects that are underpinning a line of business applications. So for example, your inventory might be work orders. It could be a customer service request. So these are sort of high-level objects that we're looking at that might require movement into another system. Once we've captured those first 2 steps in terms of the business process and content catalog, we can start to map the flow of data rather than just the business processes across the organization. And we're looking for key business objects to provide or to receive that data. And it's also really important to understand whether a system supports new data creation or update. So some systems, especially through APIs and other more modern means, have some difficulty with creating new information. So we need to understand those creation and update steps. When we're capturing business rules, the next step, we're trying to understand the constraints that we need to apply when moving from system A to system B. So this might mean a data mapping exercise to call a property in one system, something else in another system. There might be some validations that need to be performed before we insert that data into another system, or we might want to combine or calculate values or assign default values before that data is inserted into system B. Validating data, often we are using third-party systems as lookups to validate some information against a reference data source, or to be able to pull some of that content and enrich the data that we're moving from system A to system B. So add some additional context to it or some additional properties to it from that reference information. And then the last step is really about deploying technology, deploying your integration technology. And here we're going to look at some integration patterns that we often use or are used in the industry to integrate various systems. So that'll be point-to-point integrations, enterprise service bus, publish subscribe. And then what do you do about those legacy applications? How do you make them appear more modern? So we can look at API enabling some of those legacy applications to make them look like modern systems. So point-to-point pattern. So developers often develop unique connections, application to application, when they're doing things like API integration, right? I just need this value from this system. I'm just going to build a little script or a little program to go and grab it and insert it into my system. Each of those connections requires a script to take the data, to translate it, and to send it to the receiving application. And as you start to add more and more of those point-to-point integrations, what you start to see is this represents a power curve. It's exponential in terms of the number of transactions between systems, not linear. And this can be very difficult for an organization to manage over time. One of the ways that we can overcome this issue of exponential curve as you add more systems is to implement an enterprise service bus. So this is a piece of middleware, a central software platform that distributes data across multiple systems. So the data transfers between systems are controlled by business rules. Those business rules are configurable. One of the advantages here is that we often use a system independent data model that's highly simplified that each system maps into. So it's mapping into a data model that's independent of any particular system that's participating in that service bus. That makes a lot of our applications that we're plugging into that service bus more plug and play. And then we can use business rules even to direct traffic between specific applications. Publish subscribe pattern is an integration pattern that is becoming more and more common. And a lot of the cloud-based systems provided by Amazon, by Google, by Microsoft leverage this subscription program. The advantage here basically is that the publisher of information, of messages, doesn't have to know anything about who is receiving that information and what they're doing with it. They're publishing information to a topic, and a subscriber is subscribing essentially to that topic. So you can think of this as Twitter, right? You're subscribing to a hashtag and you're notified of any updates that occur on that hashtag. Similarly, a subscriber system would be notified of any particular updates related to that topic, and they can choose whether they want to integrate that new information and how to do it specifically. And then the last integration pattern we look at is API enabling legacy applications. So legacy applications are often built around database technologies and access methods, right? So they're things that were built in the late 90s, early aughts, and we've been, your organization's been adding to and updating, but there's still sort of a legacy approach to how integration works with these systems. So accessing them can be overly cumbersome, can rely on import-export operations, or some of them have some rudimentary web services. A modern API simplifies that system integration regardless of the application information model used. So building an API wrapper is a pattern that often allows you to handle the internal, how do I access this system, and separate it from any systems that are calling that API, so they don't need to know how those data operations actually work. And that way you're shielding any developers or business users from the complexity around how to interact with that legacy application.
Well, thanks, Todd. You've shed some light on some simple steps that one can go through to integrate. It's interesting to know that they have different ways to do this. But what happens if they choose not to integrate?
Well, Rob, there's, as we mentioned earlier, there are risks to avoiding the integration challenge. There's financial and operational risks, as well as risks to your reputation. So on the financial side, your finance department requires access to highly timely and high quality, accurate information for compliance and reporting. Without integrating your systems, reporting data, falls out of date, can be incomplete, and there's often manual and highly interactive in terms of people talking to people processes to be able to exchange this information. So that means your financial picture is not up to date. Operationally, you can have paper-based processes, and we see this a lot in across industries for operations, and this can result in delays to complete activities in the field. One that we see a lot of is lack of awareness on where inventory is located, leading to excessive charges to purchase cards to complete work in the field. And then there's reputation risk. So if the information is not shared between applications, especially if it's a customer-facing application that a customer is putting information into, a service request, whatnot, and the feedback isn't provided from a downstream application where the work is actually done, there's a disconnect between what's happening in the real world and what the customer knows to be happening. So the use case we often use is if you have a city tree in your front yard, a branch breaks, you call the city, a service request is logged, you get a note that says, here's your request ID number, and then suddenly you get a note that says, yeah, your request has been closed. Well, you look out your window, you can see the branch is still there attached to the tree. So clearly the work is not done. But on the city process side, what they've done is, hey, we've passed this work on to the works department, and the customer service side, we're done, right? So that basically provides a view of an impression to the citizen that the city is not very efficient or talking to each other behind the scenes.
It really sounds like there's a lot of data in different places, and yeah, I can imagine this to be confusing for somebody to enter into. One of the quotes that Spatial DNA believes to be true is from Sohail Doshi, the CEO of Mixpanel, who says, "Most of the world will make its decisions by either guessing or using their gut. They will be either lucky or wrong." So Todd, what are today's takeaways from the presentation?
There's three main points that I'd like everybody to take away. So integration ensures that data necessary to analyze your options, make decisions, is available at the user's fingertips in their application of choice that they work in every day. This reduces things like training requirements, work context switching, and other things that lead to various inefficiencies. Second, integration is a process. This involves both business and technical users. We need to capture the understanding and outline the requirements from the business point of view in a way that technical people can understand and implement. And then finally, integration combines incompatible systems into a holistic system that reduces mundane work, improves your data quality and access, and creates really a more flexible infrastructure of systems. And our ultimate goal really is to make the movement of data behind the scenes exactly that, a behind the scenes operation, and let people be creative, do the job that they're hired to do, solve problems, and be creative and innovative.
So the integration process simplifies your important data in business terms so that users can easily access the data they need in the preferred applications. And now that you understand what's involved in connecting your systems, what can you do about it? Well, Spatial DNA does provide a consulting service for this. We can help you get clear about your interface requirements, which can save you money during your software implementation. We offer an integration design agreement through which we evaluate your systems, determine your requirements, and provide a framework and a cost so that you're equipped to make important decisions. So please feel free to give us a call or email if your organization needs some expert guidance in this area. On to question time. Please feel free to raise your digital hand or wave your real hand and hop on camera to ask live, or simply put your questions in the chat and I'll read them out for Todd.
Okay, let's go through the sample questions.
Okay, we have first question, Todd. In the integration patterns that you propose, most of them require a piece of middleware. Is this required in all cases?
The point-to-point integration pattern does not require middleware. It's often just programming between two systems or three systems. But all of the other programs or patterns, yes, do need a piece of middleware. And the integration platform, the middleware, is helping to facilitate and optimize any of those integration patterns. So a lot of those integration patterns, we just displayed a few. There's over 80 different patterns. Those are often implemented and encapsulated within those integration platforms.
Thank you, Todd. Second question. Is this not handled by the people who are selling us the software that we're buying?
So people that are selling you the software are often saying, we have an API for that, or this is a role for your system implementer, and it comes out as a professional service. So essentially, it's a one-off operation. They are trying to get in and out and get your system set up successfully and get out to move on to the next project, right? Remember that project backlog.
Okay. Thank you. And another question that's come in, do we need to engage with other parts of our organization? And if so, how do we go about doing that without opening up a can of worms?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So yes, to a certain extent, you may need to engage with other parts of the organization, particularly the IT folks who often control access to your software, especially the API side of it. But you also may need to look at those business processes that cross organizational boundaries. And it's better to have people engaged in that process than have stuff essentially done to them, if you will. In terms of opening a can of worms, one of the approaches here really is to really zone in on what are the specific data objects, so that content catalog and that data flow diagram. And if that is put together and you could talk to these other organizations, they can see that there's relatively little impact, if you will, in that the business process is already doing what you're trying to do with automation.
Thank you, Todd. And one last question, but this is an important one, comes up a lot. How much does this cost?
Yeah. So I could take the economist's answer. You know, on the one hand, it's not very much. On the other hand, it's super expensive. There's a range of costs depending on the integration platform that you choose, whether you're coding a lot of that integration work even with a platform, or you're using a no code or low code platform. And then the ongoing support side is something to consider, especially in light of the retention of key technical resources. So that cost and having somebody sort of have to learn the integration part, which is often off the side of their desk, is something really important to consider, how to sort of manage that integration and green it, basically meaning keep it up to date over time.
Great, thank you very much, Todd. That wraps up our question session. If anybody has additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me at the email on the slide, and I look forward to connecting with all of you individually. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.